They called me a faker as I fought to breathe, but the truth my doctor uncovered about my parents' lies was darker than I ever imagined, and it was never about me. I didn't know you could feel your own heartbeat in your teeth until that day. One second I was standing in the kitchen, and the next I was on the floor, gasping for air while my sister knelt on my chest, her knees digging into my ribs like she was trying to anchor me to the tile. "Stop faking it for attention," my mother snapped, stepping over me with a glare sharp enough to cut skin. My father leaned casually against the counter, coffee mug in hand, and said to my sister, "Sophie, you should press harder." I don't see her eyes going blank yet. I wanted to shout, to tell him I wasn't pretending, but I couldn't even get enough air to make a sound. The edges of my vision were closing in. Everything muffled except the heavy thud of my pulse in my skull. Then blackness swallowed everything. The last thing I heard was my mother's voice, dripping with disgust. "Good. At least we won't have to hear her pathetic whining for a while." When I came to, I was lying on the living room couch. My aunt sat across from me, sipping tea and nodding toward my parents. "Some kids just don't learn until something serious happens to them," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. No one asked if I was okay. No one looked concerned. It was as if this had been some normal household discipline. I wanted to think it was a nightmare, but the ache in my chest and the throbbing in my head told me it was real. My parents had always been strict, but strict didn't usually mean physical harm. At least, not in the homes I'd seen on TV. Growing up, I learned quickly that in our house, weakness was a sin, illness was laziness, crying was manipulation, and pain was drama. My sister Sophie was the golden child, star athlete, straight A student, and my mother's clone in every way that mattered. I was not. I had always been the sick one, the tired one, the one who missed school because my body decided to betray me on random mornings. It started with fainting spells when I was 9. Then came the migraines, the muscle weakness, the days where I couldn't get out of bed without feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Doctors ran tests, but my parents insisted they not waste money chasing imaginary illnesses. They told every doctor it was anxiety, and the doctors believed them. I stopped trying to explain my symptoms because it never changed anything, until I met Dr. Alvarez. I only got to see her because I'd collapsed again, this time in public, outside the library, and a bystander had called an ambulance. My parents were furious, but the hospital assigned me a new primary care physician, and Dr. Alvarez didn't buy the anxiety line. She listened, really listened. She asked questions no one had ever asked me before, and she ordered tests my parents had refused. 4 years. I wasn't supposed to go to that appointment alone, but my parents were too busy, so I walked to her office after school. 2 days later, she called me directly. Her voice was tight, urgent. "Emily, I need you to come in immediately. And I'm calling Child Protective Services. You shouldn't be alone with your parents right now." I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, my mind spinning. CPS, for what? I knew what my family had done was wrong, but hearing someone else name it, seeing that it was serious enough for the authorities, made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. When CPS came to the house, my parents' faces drained of color. My mother tried to argue, my father tried to charm them, but Dr. Alvarez had already sent my test results ahead. They showed a severe neuromuscular disorder that could have been treated years ago, the kind of disorder that made chest compression or restricted breathing not just dangerous, but potentially fatal. The CPS worker told them they were under investigation for medical neglect and physical abuse. I thought that was the end of it, that someone would take me away, and I'd never have to look back. But the universe had other plans. 2 weeks into staying with a foster family, I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence: "We know she told you." The handwriting was my father's. My foster parents handed it to CPS, who added it to the case file, but no one could prove it meant anything. Then the mails started. At first, they were just strings of insults, calling me a liar, saying I'd ruined the family, but then came one that stopped me cold. "You have no idea what you've done. You think you were sick before, just wait." My foster parents changed my email address and blocked every possible contact, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That feeling turned into certainty the night I woke up to find someone standing in the doorway of my foster room, a tall shadow, and moving. I reached for the lamp, and it was gone. The police found nothing, but I barely slept after that. I was jumpy, constantly scanning crowds, flinching at every sudden noise. Dr. Alvarez said trauma could do that, but in my gut, I felt there was more. Then one afternoon, Dr. Alvarez called me to her office again. She looked pale and settled. "Emily, there's something I didn't tell you before. Your test results weren't just alarming, they were tampered with." She showed me the originals, and then the copies sent to my parents' insurance years ago. The older results had clear markers of the disorder. Even back then, someone changed them to make it look like nothing was wrong, she said quietly. And whoever did it had access to the hospital system. My stomach dropped. My parents didn't have medical access. But my aunt, mighty sipping, casually cruel aunt, worked as an administrator at the largest hospital in the state. Suddenly, all the pieces shifted. The dismissive doctors, the years of imaginary illness, the way every test seemed to come back normal. My parents hadn't just ignored my illness. They'd made sure no one could ever prove it existed. Dr. Alvarez told CPS, who added it to the investigation. My aunt denied everything, but her computer login showed edits to my files on multiple dates. It should have been the final nail in their coffin. But before the case could go to court, my parents and aunt disappeared. Just gone. House emptied, phone numbers disconnected. No forwarding address. It made headlines for a week. Family under CPS investigation vanishes, but then the news cycle moved on. I tried to move on too. I finished school, turned 18, got my own place. The nightmares faded to a dull background hum. Until last month, I was going through the mail when I found a small padded envelope with no return address. Inside was a flash drive. No note, no explanation, just a drive. Against every horror movie instinct, I plugged it into my laptop. There were 3 files. The first was a folder of scanned documents, every altered medical report from my childhood, side by side with the originals. The second was a video file. It was grainy security footage from what looked like a storage unit. In it, my parents and aunt were loading boxes into the back of a van. They looked different, thinner, harsher. And then I noticed what was on the boxes, the logo of a private pharmaceutical lab. The third file was a text document. For words, "It was never about you." That was the moment the twist snapped into place in my head. My illness, the tampered records, the abuse. It wasn't just neglect or cruelty. It was cover. My medical condition had been valuable to someone, and my family had been hiding it, controlling it, maybe even selling information about it. I wasn't the center of their cruelty. I was the smokescreen for something bigger, something they'd built their lives around. Now I don't know if the flash drive was a warning, a confession, or an invitation. But I do know this: every time I walk home, I catch myself checking the shadows, waiting for the day they decide I'm useful again. Or worse, the day they decide I'm not. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this.